The Grand National has been declared void. It's been described as the most sensational occurrence in the long history of the National.
The first indication that the world's greatest steeplechase and Britain's most popular sporting occasion was about to descend into utter farce and unforgettable controversy came when the 39 runners were held up at the start by an animal rights demonstration further down the track. When the off finally came 8 minutes late, they were instantly called back for a full start. 5 minutes later, the same thing happened, but this time all but 9 of the runners pounded on regardless, unaware of what had happened behind them. As jockeys, horses and officials milled around in bewilderment, the leaders went on to contest the most bizarre finish to the National in its entire history. Echerness, Carvilla Howe and Romany King battled up the run-in eerie, disbelieving quiet. Almost immediately, the realization dawned on Echerness's jockey, John White, that he just won the National that never was.
Two-year-old James was last seen outside this butcher's shop in a Bootle arcade. Security cameras photographed his apparent abduction by 2 youths.
Liverpool, 1993. A large city in northern England that once relied heavily on the shipping and manufacturing industries was now reinventing itself through its cultural attractions and tourism. Along the M62 motorway in neighbouring Manchester, the Hacienda nightclub was at its height and held massive cultural significance. The Manchester scene was becoming synonymous with music alongside the drug ecstasy. Bands like the Happy Mondays and Stone Roses had become prominent. Indeed, 1993 would be the year music executive Alan McGee would travel to Glasgow and first see up-and-coming Mancunian band Oasis and sign them on a 6-album deal with Creation Records. Back in Liverpool, 2-year-old James Bulger lived with his devoted parents, Mum Denise and Dad Ralph. Watching this home video of James so full of life, energy and joy, it's heartbreaking knowing the despicable nature in which his life would come to an end. Just 4 years earlier in 1989, tragedy struck an FA Cup semi-final when 97 Liverpool fans in total died as a result of the Hillsborough disaster, with another 766 injured in a dark day for the city. Initially, police and officials blamed Liverpool fans' unruly behaviour for the incident. It would be many years later before they themselves, in particular former Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield, would take accountability for failing to close a tunnel which allowed an extra 2,000 too many Liverpool fans into their end of the ground, causing many supporters to be crushed in the resulting stampede. However, the James Bulger case would once again shift focus back onto the city, in a case which shook the entire country. On the 12th of February, Denise Bulger took her young son James to the New Strand shopping centre in Bootle. After visiting other shops, around 3:30 p.m, the pair made their way to A.R. Tim's, which was a butcher's shop inside the precinct. There, as Denise went to take out her purse and take out some money, she momentarily let go of James's hand. It was at this point that 2 young boys beckoned James over to them. Before Denise even realised what was happening, the boys led the toddler away with them and began to make their exit from the busy shopping centre. As they did so, security cameras from Mothercare captured the event. The boys, who were both 10 years old, would later be identified as Robert Thompson and John Venables. The pair had spent the day skipping school and stealing items from the precinct. items which included blue model paint and batteries. Both Thompson and Venables lived in the Walton area of Liverpool. Thompson was one of 7 brothers who lived with his mother. 2 of these brothers were known to police, while 2 others had previously gone into care. His parents had separated years earlier. Venables' parents had also broken up, and he lived alone with his mother on the Norris Green estate. It's estimated children from fatherless homes are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, though of course it's rare for children so young to commit such a heinous crime the pair would commit on 2-year-old James. On realising James's disappearance, Denise inevitably began to panic. After immediately reporting James missing to security, the police discovered the footage of James leaving with 2 unidentified young males. Initially, Denise felt a moment of relief, as she assumed the pair's intentions could not have been overtly sinister. Perhaps they had even misread James's situation and believed he was by himself and wanted to help. However, nothing could have been further from the truth. Venables and Thompson were seen by several witnesses with James. They were even confronted by witnesses, but the boys had no issue in quickly lying by telling them James was their younger brother. This was not a spur-of-the-moment idea. The pair had previously discussed and planned a potential abduction. With James now with them, the pair moved away from the busy street and downstairs, which took them to the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. As they walked along the canal pathway, the boys deliberately dropped James onto his head, causing injuries to his face and head. They joked about pushing him into the canal. James was witnessed crying uncontrollably by someone in the area. The pair pulled up James's hood to hide any injuries and continued to lead him down the quieter alleyways towards the Walton area where the boys lived and were more familiar. Once they'd led James up a steep embankment to a secluded area of railway line near Walton Cemetery, the pair began an absolute horrific and brutal attack on the toddler. They threw modelling paint they had stole earlier into James's eyes before kicking and stamping on him. They began throwing bricks at James's face and head, causing him to bleed profusely from the wounds. James was stripped naked from the waist down, and the stolen batteries were forced into his mouth. Evidence would also suggest James was also sexually assaulted during the attack, including having some of the batteries forced up into his rear. An iron bar was used to strike him across the head several times, before a heavy piece of railway track known as a fish plate was slammed onto his head. James at this point was likely dead, or at the very least dying. Venables and Thompson made a naive attempt to make the toddler's death look like an accident. They laid James's semi-naked body across one of the railway lines and weighed his head down with bricks, hoping people would assume James died after being struck by a train. Disturbingly, after they left the scene, a train would sever the young child's body in 2. The level of violence used by the 2 young boys was, and still is to this day, absolutely incomprehensible and sickening. As time went on, the hope of James being safe and well with the 2 boys was beginning to fade. Police were desperately trying to discover their identity. Experts were brought in to try and enhance the CCTV images. At one point, a young boy was arrested and interviewed by police. However, when it became apparent the boy wasn't involved, he was released. Emotions were running high, and the family fled the city fearing reprisal. It would be 2 days before the severed and battered body of James would be found by 2 brothers by the names of James and Terence Riley. James was 14 years old, and his brother Terence just 13. The brothers would go on to become career criminals in the years that followed, and blamed the trauma of finding the remains for their criminal behaviour and addiction to drugs. James Riley would die in police custody in March 2023 at the age of 44. The area where James's remains were found was cordoned off by police, who began to gather evidence and try and make sense of the horrific crime scene. The breakthrough in the case came when a neighbour of John Venables tipped off police after identifying him from the released images, and confirming they had witnessed him truanting from school with Robert Thompson on the day of the murder. On the morning of Thursday the 18th of February, the boys were arrested and interviewed by police at separate police stations. Listening to the recorded tapes of the two boys becoming upset, it would be easy and somewhat natural to feel sympathy for the pair, though it's important to keep in mind the horrific and vile attack they committed on the defenceless toddler. Their crying is not out of remorse for James, but for being caught and potentially having to face consequences.
Bobby, I came round to your house this morning, didn't I?
Yeah.
What did I say to you?
No listening.
Correct. What for?
James.
James, what about James?
That you said on suspicion of murdering.
Well, very well remembered. Did you ever see him in the Strand? You shook your head again.
Yeah.
Bobby, was that on the day that we're talking about? Was that on this Friday? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were going up the escalators, they were coming through the doors that there's loads of.
Who was he with?
No,
Little James.
his mum.
With his mum. He was just running around, was he, James?
Yeah.
Will you tell me exactly, slowly, right?
Just said come here. And then he grabbed his hands and walked up the stand.
How did he come up to John?
How did he come up to John?
James.
You know he was walking around the strand.
Who was? James?
The baby.
Was he?
I told him to take him back.
You did what?
I told him to take him back.
You told him to take it back?
All right, Bobby. No, you're not getting all the blame. I'm just asking your son. We're trying to find the truth.
We always get the blame.
Wait a minute, Bobby. Listen. You see, little James is following you up on stage, right? But on another picture, John, it appears as if John had hold of his hand.
Yeah, well, why are you questioning me and John as well?
John saying to us that he wasn't down at the Strand.
But we were.
I know you were at the Strand, but why should he lie to us by saying that he wasn't in the Strand? He's scared of saying that he was down in the Strand because something happened, didn't it?
Not the baby got took.
Yeah.
Not by me.
We certainly admitted throwing stones and things like that.
But he's blaming you for a lot of things.
Yeah, well, why
Do you
is he
understand?
blaming me?
Well, I want to know the truth, right? The whole truth. There's other things going on, isn't there? I know the truth. I believe I know the truth.
I was there.
That's
You
right.
waved.
Correct, but I know that a lot of things that have gone on.
Yeah, well, do you know it was me that killed him? It wasn't. I never even killed him. I'm gonna end up getting all the blame because I've got blood on me.
We're asking you, son, and we want you to tell us the truth, that's all. Not give the blame to you or anything else. But it's only the truth that we're
Yeah, well,
concerned
if Johnny
about.
threw a brick in his face.
Can we just go through slowly, right, what John did with what, right? You said he got hit with a brick first, didn't he? Then, what did he do?
Another brick.
He threw another brick.
Will I be
2055.
able to go home tonight?
We don't know yet, And I want you to tell
Yeah, I
Rachel.
don't need to answer any more questions, do I?
Hey, come on now, Bobby. Was he able to talk?
No.
James,
Yeah.
what did he say to you?
I want me now.
He said that the two of you were in the Strand and that you saw the little boy.
We never. Yeah, we was, but we never saw any kids there. We never wrote any kids.
So you were in Bootle New Strand?
Was you in Bootle Strand?
We never got a kid, Mum. We never got a
Mrs. Venables, would you... I must ask you not to get angry with it.
I never got the boy. I never killed him, Mum.
And he said that you took him by the hand and led him out of the Strand shops.
We never. He's a liar.
Calm down.
Oh my gosh. Oh no, don't get alright, come on, look. But the God's honest truth.
God's honest truth, I'm telling you that we never. He was too scared. He was probably too scared.
A short while ago, as is detailed on your custody record out there, you had a conversation with your mum and you then requested that myself come into the room. Is that right? Yeah. And what was it you told us?
That I killed James. So we walked up to him and we were walking around with him and I took his hand.
Well, whose idea was it to walk towards him?
Mine.
Was it? What did
Then
you
it was Robert's idea to kill him. And we went outside to the canal.
What for?
Don't know, he said let's throw him in the water. He was persuading him, he said kneel down and let's look at the water and all that, but he wouldn't. Because when we wouldn't get him down, Robert kicked him up and threw him on the floor and that's where he got his bump on his head.
What were you gonna... Why were you taking him to Lotton Village?
Don't know, he didn't know what to do.
You walk along... where?
To the train track. We took him on the rail shop and started throwing bricks at him. I didn't throw any bricks because Robert said pick a brick up and throw it. I just threw it on the floor.
What was Robert saying while he was doing all this?
He was saying stay down, you stupid dick and all that.
Why did he want him to stay down?
Don't know. Wanted him dead, probably.
Where did the stones in the bar hit him?
In the head.
And you say the bar knocked him out?
Yeah. Onto the railway track.
And what happened then?
No, he was just lying there. Just finished now because I can't speak anymore.
After being charged with murder, 2 days later the boys faced a hearing in Bootle. Angry crowds gathered waiting for Thompson and Venables to exit. When they did, the vans they were in were attacked with bricks and people banging and punching the sides of the van. The funeral of James took place at the Sacred Heart Church in Kirby on the 1st of March.
Little James, we're all the same. Always seem to look to us. We were meant to be grown-ups. Thank you for your smile. You make it all worthwhile to us.
Robert Thompson and John Venables would be tried at Preston Crown Court, with both boys pleading not guilty to abduction and murder. On the 24th of November 1993, James's mum Denise went to the court for the first time to hear the jurors' verdict. As the guilty verdict was announced, there was an outpouring of emotion from both the victim and defendant's families. At sentencing, the judge, Mr. Justice Morland, ordered the two boys, now both 11 years old, to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure for very, very many years to come, with a recommended minimum term of 8 years. In a statement read to the court, the judge cited violent videos as potentially being partly to blame, as Venables' father had previously rented some of these types of videos. Child's Play 3 was one video in particular cited. However, there was absolutely no evidence John Venables had been influenced by these videos, or that he'd even watched them at all. This, however, was something the media was quick to pick up on, as so-called video nasties were very much in the spotlight at the time. There was seemingly a social contagion among some that led them to believe these videos needed to be heavily censored or even banned. Even double Academy Award winning film The Exorcist found itself banned in the UK for 13 years. Other films banned under the label Video Nasties included The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. At the forefront of this was moral zealot and self-appointed censorship campaigner Mary Whitehouse.
Look, if somebody tells me, as we get these reports in from Europe, from America, and from this country, that a particular video nasty contains that, and that, I actually don't need to see visually what I know is in that film.
And there have been a lot of instances where youngsters have pooled their pocket money to go and get one of these things to see whether they frighten them or not. And of course, it does have effect on youngsters, as indeed it has an effect on adults.
My son, spending a Saturday morning with a friend, indeed with two friends, finished up because of the inclement weather, I believe, in the lounge of his friend's home, watching that indescribably evil video, in my view, The Evil Dead. He came home, was unable to eat his meal. We attached no significance to that at all. He later went to bed, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was awakened out of a deep sleep to go into my boy's bedroom. He was in a crouched position with his hands between his knees, screaming, screeching in fact, a sickening sound, and took a great deal of time composing him. We eventually got through that night. The following night, bearing in mind he's 11 years old, almost 12 years old, he wet his bed. Now that was quite uncharacteristic. He sobbed, he had nightmares, he came into our room with pictures from The Evil Dead still passing before his mind.
You know, people who say, but why shouldn't adults be able to see this kind of thing in their own home? I'm half tempted to say that people who make that kind of demand, knowing that children are likely to see it, aren't really themselves very mature and adult.
In my opinion, what someone like Mary Whitehouse doesn't seem to understand is the complexities that lead someone to carry out the type of crime Thompson and Venables committed. Her moral justifications and simplistic way of thinking was surface level at best, and in many ways incredibly naive. In many ways, 1993 was a very different time when compared to today. If you as a kid needed to ring home, you'd have to find the nearest phone box. And evenings were spent playing football in the park and hanging out with friends. I myself was 15 at the time and was ready to leave school in the summer. So I remember this case vividly and the impact it had on society. The shock and disbelief that was created as more and more stomach-churning details emerged. In many ways, the case would bookend a more innocent time. With widespread use of mobile phones and the internet just around the corner, the death of little James in a way coincided with the death of this kind of childhood. After sentencing, Thomas and Venables were sent to secure units for young offenders. Both of the boys' parents would regularly visit them there. After serving just 8 years in a secure unit, Venables and Thompson were released with new identities in 2001. An injunction was granted after the release hearing, which prevented the media from releasing details about the two. The news of the murderer's release would come as a bitter blow to the Bulger family, who had tirelessly campaigned to keep their son's killers incarcerated. Sickeningly, neither Thompson or Venables would serve any time in actual prison. While Denise and Ralph Bulger would welcome the birth of a second son, the death of James and the huge stress that surrounded it would take its toll on their marriage. The couple divorced in 1995. In the years since, Robert Thompson, as of date, has not reoffended. It's reported he now lives in a stable homosexual relationship. For John Venables, his release has been anything but quiet. Even before his release, it was rumoured he was involved in a relationship with a female employee at the secure unit. Since then, he's been reported to have been involved with many younger girls. He has twice drunkenly given away his identity, and in 2008 was arrested for fighting on a drunken night out. In the same year, he was also cautioned for possession of cocaine. He's been arrested on numerous occasions for possessing indecent images of children. In 2017, he was recalled to prison and sentenced to 40 months. After serving this sentence, he was released on a new fourth identity, even requesting plastic surgery after images of him appeared online. However, he again violated the terms of his parole and once again found himself behind bars. The latest information I can find indicates he remains in prison at the time of making this video, as he was denied bail in January of 2024. But it raises questions to at what point as a society you accept someone like Venables has no intent or desire to change. Looking at his accumulated crimes since the age of 10, there is every reason to believe the best place for him is to remain behind bars. The senseless murder of James Bulger also raised questions to how we as a society deal with very young offenders, while trying to come to terms with the loss of such an innocent little victim. The 8 years served in a secure unit doesn't seem like any kind of justice. There's no question at 10 years old, Thompson and Venables knew the difference between right and wrong, and the attack they carried out was deliberately sadistic and premeditated. In my own personal opinion, the two should have served at least a 20-year sentence, with 8 of those years being served in the young offender secure unit before they were old enough to go to adult prison. As a parent myself, I cannot imagine the pain Denise and Ralph Bulger suffered as a result of their precious son's barbaric murder. The pain James and those who loved him endured seems significantly greater than the perpetrators faced in their incredibly lenient and short incarcerations. My thoughts remain with the family of James Bulger. James in no way deserved the brutal end Thompson and Venables inflicted on him, and the family deserves justice, which ultimately they were denied by those responsible for ensuring it.